Hello, networkers, and welcome back to another episode of Ask a Network Engineer, where I will answer one of your questions. In the next set of videos, I want to share and talk about more of my experiences and growing pains or mistakes or things that I've learned growing up in the industry and becoming a network engineer. This has been a couple of questions you guys have been asking about for me to share some of my growing pains. For example, there's one by One Blue Mason, and he says I'm looking forward to you talking about some of the mistakes that you have made while cutting your teeth in the industry. I'm going through some growing pains as a junior network engineer. And another question and feedback from Sheldon Moss, where he says that I enjoyed the speed round, but I never heard you talk about the growing pains in the network engineering field. I am a junior engineer, and I tend to be very hard on myself when I make a goof up. My boss and my team and my boss all tell me that this is part of the learning process. It would be nice if you could share some of the lessons that you have learned over time from mistakes that you have made coming up in the network engineering field. So that's really good, because really I want to provide feedback and provide information of my experiences of things that I've learned and the challenges that I have encountered over the past almost 20 years. So I thought about this hard, and I have some good examples of things that I have learned. So I want to go ahead and begin one of those issues right now in this video. The one thing that I have learned as a network engineer very early on, like in my very, very first IT job ever, is something called politics. Now, I talk a lot about politics kind of here and there in these episodes. So that means I get to talk about it now in more clarity. What does that mean exactly? What is politics? Well, politics happens everywhere, by the way. It's not just within a company. It happens in the movie industry, the music industry, basically at your school, elementary school, college, happens in your neighborhood, even in your house. Who knows, right? Politics happens everywhere. So what is politics, and what does that really mean in terms of this context? So politics is basically a group of people, which is typically management, that has a hidden agenda, a hidden plan that is not communicated with everybody else, like a staff. And they would not basically be candid with you. They would not tell you the truth. They'd be like, oh no, we're not doing that. But they are thinking and they're doing that. That means that they have plans that they're not communicating with you, and it could impact you. When those kind of things happen, people see it as it is not equal or fair. There's imbalance in that system. And people get angry and they start to gossip and talk, and that's basically how it happens. That is politics. A great example of politics is this that I have personally encountered. Great example. So this was like maybe 5-6 years ago, okay, a long time ago. And I was brought in by a company to do a network assessment. Go ahead and check things out and see how things are configured, okay? Now, the manager told me that they already have a network engineer slash server person slash desktop person that basically manages everything. So they wanted me just to do the assessment just on the networking side, the security, the network, the wireless, all of that. Okay. But I cannot communicate with them with what I'm doing. I'm just there just to look at things and nothing else. Okay. Okay, sure. So I went ahead and I did the network survey and checked things out, did the assessment. And the person, the network engineer person, he was, he wasn't very sure what was going on. He's like, why are you here? I said, I'm just brought in just to kind of check things out, do an assessment. That's all I'm here for. Okay. He just didn't like it. Okay. I get that a lot. Network engineers do not like consultants coming in and kind of overseeing what they're doing. I understand completely. Okay. So anyway, after I completed my assessment, a few days later, I have a meeting with the manager, and there's the director and other high-level executives in that room. Okay. And they're saying very candidly that Okay, so what do you have so far on the network? Because we need to fire this guy. Okay. Oh, okay. Because what they wanted me to do was to make sure that there was no backdoor networks in there, so that when they fire him, that he can't basically go ahead and connect in and basically bring things down. They did not like that guy's performance, his attitude, that sort of thing. They wanted to get rid of him, but they couldn't tell him because they want to make sure that the network is in a condition that is not too messy and that sort of thing. So I said, well, the network is pretty simple. There's not much to it. There's no backdoors. Everything is fine. There are some recommendations that we need to do, some replacement of older hardware, but in terms of concerns security-wise, based on what you wanted, there's nothing there, okay? And the bad thing about that is I couldn't tell that guy, like, look, they're going to fire you, okay? I couldn't. I signed NDAs, so I couldn't do that, okay? And once I gave my assessment, 2 days later, they fired him, okay? That is politics. So there are several points and suggestions of what I have learned and what you can learn as well during your venture of anything in the IT field. The first main point that I learned is you want to be aware of company chatter and gossip. Yes, I know, but that's becomes very valuable. So that means that if people are talking about a particular manager or, hey, have you heard this? Oh, have you heard about this director having a meeting with this? You want to keep your ear to the ground and be aware of that. That's very important because you may hear some information that it could be true, it could be false. You don't know. But any information makes you aware of what the company could be up to and what they're doing. Because once again, they're not going to tell you that, okay? I've been in companies where people said, oh, we're not going to lay anybody off. A week later, they laid off basically like 20 people. They're not going to tell you that. It's a hidden agenda that is not going to be communicated with the staff. So I'm not saying for you to participate in gossip and spreading false information. Don't do that. Don't be that person. But if people are talking and having conversations in the hallway, the break room, it happens in all companies, by the way. Like every company I've been in, people have these kind of backroom talks. You want to listen to that, kind of be aware of that because it could impact you. Another point or something that I learned is to be aware if there's a change in the management staff. Oh, that's a big one. Because remember, when you are hired into a company, you're being interviewed by the management staff, the manager, the director, and other engineers. Okay? And if they hire you, that means that they like you. Okay? But sometimes a company, you may have a new manager, a new director, a new CIO or CTO, okay? And if that happens, you really want to be really more aware and alert to that because that new manager doesn't know you or that new director, they don't know you. And sometimes what happens is that the management staff, they may bring in their own people, like their own consulting groups or consultants that they have worked with in the past. They kind of go in and do an assessment to make sure everything is good, even doing an assessment of the engineers. Remember the story that I just gave you guys about politics, about a consultant coming in, that being me, and doing an assessment of the network, and basically a few days later that person was fired? That could happen if there is a new change in the management staff, okay? So you really want to be more cautious of that. If that manager is basically bringing in a consultant to check things out, you may want to consider that as a red flag. Don't be paranoid, but be paranoid because you don't know what that could mean. So I've seen that a lot, that people may come in and they may have different agendas that's not being communicated with you. It may involve outsourcing. You do not know that. But the point is, I have noticed that whenever there was a change in management staff, from my experience, I have always noticed negative results from that. So if that happens, you want to kind of be aware of that and maybe prepare your exit. Another thing that I learned about company politics is, well, two components: company acquisitions and outsourcing. Okay? If you are in a company, okay, that's about to be acquired, and you will probably know that because of people talking and gossip. That's why you want to be aware and listen to other coworkers that are out there, okay? And typically, if you are working at a smaller company and a bigger company is going to acquire you, is almost 99.999% that you will lose your job. This is why you want to be aware and listen to the chatter, because if the company could be acquired, yes, they'll give you a package and then you can leave and basically, hey, find a new job. But if that happens, if you're hearing that kind of chatter that an acquisition could happen, then you may want to update your resume and to leave. You will likely lose your job. Or maybe it's outsourcing. That is definitely a possibility. Companies save a lot of money from outsourcing their IT department and their data center. That's a huge cost savings. Because keep in mind, the most expensive thing for a company is you, the employee. Okay? Remember, there's health insurance, there's compensation, there's salary. They're even paying basically your taxes. Okay? You get to pay your taxes on what you're getting paid for. Okay? But it's very expensive for companies. So outsourcing is really, really a very common thing for certain businesses if it makes sense in terms of saving money. Okay? And sometimes that's not going to be communicated with you. I've actually worked in an environment, and I think I told the story before a little bit though, but there was a new CIO, which I brought up. That's a change in management. And basically he was looking at basically outsourcing, but that was not communicated with us, with the staff. Basically a year later, things were being outsourced and half the people lost their job. So if you're hearing gossip or information about potential acquisitions or outsourcing, it could mean that you may lose your job. And if that happens, you may want to start to prepare, update your resume, and leave the company. Another learning point is your relationship with your management staff. Okay? This is very important. And this is basically, I think, with the example that I gave, that the company felt like that one guy that they fired had like a bad attitude. That's part of the relationship. So if you have a great relationship with your manager, then you're probably much in a good spot, and you should definitely invest your time there, because that means you got a good, healthy environment. I've been very fortunate. A lot of the managers I work with are great people. I love them. Maybe had one or two, maybe three managers that I did not like. Okay. Now, in terms of directors and CIOs, CTOs, yeah, there's probably a lot of those that I did not like, because they had hidden agendas, which were basically true. Okay. But you need to make sure that you have a good relationship with your boss. If you do not, then it could mean that there's a hidden agenda where maybe a consultant may come in and may replace you, or you could be terminated. Okay, so that is something that you want to definitely be more aware of. Don't be blind to that. Like, oh, my boss is mean. He's always mean to me, but he's not mean to that person. There could be something there. And remember, they hold the key of basically your evaluation, and it could lead to them either laying you off. Like if there's layoffs that they need to do, you may be basically on top of that list, or they may fire you for just cause or something that you have done. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind. Another point or continuation of basically the relationship is, what is your reputation in the company? This is really a big one for me personally, because that also relates to your trustworthiness. Does the company trust you? What's your reputation? Because if you have a very poor reputation through the eyes of your boss or through the management staff, you do not have a bright future. Because that means that if you wanted to move to different departments, that may be blocked because the management staff has to make those decisions. If you want to do different things or get promoted, that will likely be blocked if you have a very bad reputation. I've seen that many times, and it's very frustrating sometimes, right? When I see certain people that I really do like, they're good people, but they have a bad reputation. Like managers say, oh, he doesn't do his job very well. He just, studies all the time. And that person tries to move ahead. I have personally seen that, because that person has such a bad reputation for whatever reason, it basically blocks that person from moving ahead, and it makes them frustrated, and they eventually leave, or they could be fired, or could be laid off if the opportunity arises. So that's why you want to kind of, once again, keep your ear to the ground and be aware. How does the company feel about you? Do they trust you? Things like that. And if you have a bad reputation in the company, if you are not basically trustworthy through the eyes of your employer, please update resume, leave the company as soon as possible. Another thing is view how others are being treated. Okay? So maybe these things, maybe your boss loves you, your company, they just simply love you. Well, good. See how they treat other people. Okay? And unfortunately, I've seen this too, that people may like me and some other people, but they don't like other people, and they may communicate that with particular comments. The reason why that's important, that if your manager or another manager has a very dislike or unfavorable view of another employee, then that means that it's possible that you could also be seen as unfavorable. Okay? That's something to keep in mind, because if you're not liked in the company and you see that, well, what happens to them? You may see that they're being turned down for opportunities, for projects, for promotions. Just see that for yourself, because that shows the potential that the company could do that to you. So politics is something that I learned very early on in my career. And the main thing that I learned about that was I've seen people lose their job. Many people lose their job because of a hidden agenda was not communicated with the staff, and they were let go, whether it was because of an acquisition that has happened, because of outsourcing that has happened, because of some kind of reputation or relationship with the company or the management staff that has happened, and so on. And I've seen those people struggle to get their next job because it was basically such unexpected that they lost their job and like, okay, that's what I learned. And I was fortunate to kind of experience that without being impacted by that. I quickly learned, listen, be aware of everything. But I also learned 4 main things. If you do these 4 things, then you basically will be in the good graces of the company and you won't really be impacted too much. That's what it comes down to. The first thing is you want to be positive. Be a positive individual in the company. Don't be negative. Don't go, oh man, I got to do a maintenance window. Oh man, this is always down. Don't complain. You want to be positive. If you complain, the company is going to see that. And guess what? Your reputation, your image is you're a complainer, okay? Don't do that. Be a positive person, okay? The other thing that I learned is you want to be a team player, okay? You want to be part of the team and help out where you can, okay? Because that's important. You want to build allies because these people will basically vouch for you and basically say, yes, he's a good person and I like that person because he helps me out a lot. You want to have allies, okay? You want, team player, okay? Don't be a solo person and just, I don't need everybody. You do need your team, okay? Whether you like it or not, okay? The other thing I learned is you want to be humble. Don't go around thinking like you know everything. Oh yeah, you should do this, you should do that, blah, blah, blah. No, you do not know everything, okay? And it can be easily put to shame, okay? Be humble. You do not know everything. You know what you know. You provide your expertise to that. You compliment and you acknowledge other people and what they are learning. That's what a mentor actually does. That's what a leader does. You don't bring down your team and other people around you, though. You actually bring and build with them up. I know it's kind of preachy, though, but that means something. I have learned about that. Be humble, okay? But the other thing is communication. You want to communicate everything that you possibly can with your manager or things like that. If there's something going on, communicate with them like, hey, we're having this problem with this network here. I think we should probably do this or probably do that. Like, hey, just do communication with that. That's really a good thing. And also with your team, you want to communicate with them as much as you can, because if you're a manager cannot basically disclose everything to your, to their team, right? Like if they know that half their team is going to get laid off, they're not allowed, okay? They're not allowed to communicate those details there. That's why it's important for you to basically do your own work and for you to be more openly aware of the environment, though, so that if the company is thinking about laying people off, it's not your manager's fault. It could be maybe a contributing factor, but it's not really their fault. But the point is you can do what you need to do, because politics really does hurt people if they don't understand it. And that's why it is one of the things that I have learned over the years as a network engineer. And we are done with this episode. And I have a lot more things to share of things that I have learned growing up as a network engineer. So a lot more of these type of videos will be coming out soon. And as always, I want to hear from the rest of you guys. So if you have any questions about being a network engineer or anything in the networking field, post your questions below in the comments and your question will come up in a future episode. So thank you for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. And also support us at routhub.net and check out our practical training that we provide. And until next time, keep networking.